Welcome to the Jesus People segment of the Antioch Indy podcast, a place where each week we're going to hear from different people about what it means to walk with God. We hope that you leave encouraged and equipped and that this builds your faith for what God wants to do in your life. Welcome, everybody, to the Jesus People segment of the Antioch Indy podcast. This is Karis Freegee. I am your host, and the purpose of this portion of our podcast is really to introduce people on a more familiar level to different people in our church through interviews. That's why we've had these Meet the People segments. We also have times where it will just be Pastor Andrew and I sitting down talking about stuff that's on his heart. And then we'll also have these things that are more like a conversation, maybe a conversation about evangelism like I had with Crystal Brown and Linda Znako a few episodes ago. Today's episode I feel really excited about. I have Sam Best with me as a co-interviewer / conversationalist, right, up? Sam? And then we have Stefan Davenport with us, who I have heard your story through your wife, and I've heard your story through other people, but never face-to-face. And so I'm excited to have you on today for that, for myself. But then I also think that your story offers something to our church as a whole. And so I feel really excited for today.
Excited.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Stefan, what do you do in real life?
I'm a hairstylist.
You're a hairstylist.
At Radiate 60.
With Crystal and your sister.
Sister and Annabelle.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then you also, in your free time, tell me about some of the things you love to do.
The free time is consumed entirely by swimming, biking, and running.
Right? Just like yours, right, Sam? You too.
Yeah,
just
same
like
with
me.
our training partners.
Yeah.
See them all the time. Yeah. Okay, wait. Okay, so swimming, biking, running.
Anything triathlon related.
Mm-hmm.
So that, it takes up the bike rides and running they're pretty long.
Yeah.
Just time-wise.
Yeah.
So, yeah, other than my wife and Dax and hair, it's all on the bike and running.
It's training.
Yeah.
We had Brad Huff on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about that too. He trains with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, all we talk about is we talk about God, we talk about food, and triathlons.
That's a Brad
great.
meeting.
And
Yeah.
Brad's always like, and usually not in that order.
Yeah.
Do you count macros like Brad does?
No.
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 You just kind of like
Brad
feel.
counts macros. Did he tell you that?
Well, he said, I'm either going to count macros perfectly. Anyway, I'll have to
He is getting better.
I need to fact check him on that.
Yeah.
What are you training for? Is there a goal or a deadline?
No, not really a goal. It's just something I have a couple races coming up in July and August, but no goal. I just love doing it. And I need exercise in my life, and the guys I do this stuff with, and Janelle's probably very appreciative of just me being a better husband because of the exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me,
crazy.
how did you get into, especially triathlons? It's one thing to be I'm going to go on a run, but to be I'm going to go on a run and then I'm going to bike. Or you swim first, right?
Yeah.
That alone, I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah, so I got Janelle's family was doing them, and then invited me to do them. I come from a really strong, biking family. Everybody rides. My grandpa owns a company called Wandering Wheels.
No way.
Where they ride from Seattle, or somewhere in Washington, all the way to Florida. So across the United States.
Yeah.
And then back to Indiana. So they do that, or they used to do it all the time. He's older now, so he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
So everyone on that side rides, and then on my mom's side as well, everybody rides there too. So I've been riding for a while, and and then it just turned into the triathlons just as I got older and needed something to do.
Need something to do.
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
if you're bored, anyone listening, pick up triathlon.
Yeah.
Why not?
Is that what you'd say?
Easy.
Pick up triathlon?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Sam, have you ever attempted?
No, I have not.
But you work
Probably
out.
won't. Sure,
why you look so
if that's
fit.
what you want to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
15 minutes at a time.
Yeah,
I
right.
love it. Okay, so obviously you're pretty athletic. You have to be to do stuff like that.
Ish, yeah.
No, yeah, he is.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what
not
I
going to say how
Say it
Yeah,
right
I'm
now.
pretty good. Chad would be like, I'm a pretty good athlete. Anyway, okay, so tell me, where did you grow up? You are obviously Carly Rush is your sister.
Yeah.
The Rush family went to Indonesia recently, and our church was praying for them.
Yeah.
If you haven't met Carly, she's precious, and you should meet her. She's your sister.
Yeah.
And tell me about your life. Where'd you guys grow up?
So grew up in Upland, born in Oregon,
Yes.
and then moved to Michigan. My dad was a hall director there at Spring Arbor College.
Oh.
It's like Taylor kind of.
Yeah.
and then moved to Muncie for a year, and then Upland since I was in first grade.
Where is Upland? I would assume it's
So,
up because of the name.
you know where Taylor is, right?
I don't. I like Indiana's
She's
not
from
my...
Texas.
Oh.
Sam, don't act like you know where it is either, Mr. Texas.
I know exactly where
I
it
just
is.
assumed you knew. I mean,
I don't.
okay. So from here, it's like an hour. In between here and Fort Wayne, it's like an hour north of here
Okay.
on 69.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where you guys grew up.
Yeah. So grew up there. Yes, that's where I grew up.
That's great. And then you and Janelle got married how many years ago?
So we just had our 4th anniversary.
Okay.
We started dating 6 years ago, dated for a year, engaged for a year, and then married for 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was the transition like? I know y'all were part of another church that we all kind of like knew each other from. And
Yeah.
then what was the transition to Antioch?
So
what
we
kind of
moved to Zionsville, and so we found another church there.
Oh, yeah.
And we liked it.
Yeah.
But we didn't have like the community that we have, like that we were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
We just wanted something a little bit, just more intimate and smaller. And we needed small groups together.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister, numerous times, would talk about it, and so finally she was like, "Can you guys just come one
Yeah.
week to see what you think?"
Yeah.
And then just
To
being,
Antioch. Just come to Antioch.
yeah, I've always been a very nice brother
Yeah.
to her,
Sure.
so I said okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came that once, and it was in the Old National Center.
Yeah.
And then just loved everything about it. Loved the people. Loved the message, the worship, and it just had a different feel of like how everyone truly is super connected with each other. There was no one in the church that people didn't know about. Like everyone everyone. It was a family.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did that. I don't know, has it been 3 years or so, something like that.
That's
But
wild.
yeah.
And you're in Sam's life group, which
Yes.
we put that
Yeah.
together just
Yeah.
now. Sam, like, what do you remember about Janelle and Stefan when you first met them? Do you have any like first
Oh
impressions?
man,
Putting
that's
you
a
on the
great
spot.
question.
Yeah. Or like, what are things about them that you would just describe to other
Well,
people?
I remember I knew you guys for a long time before I knew that you and that you had like relatives that went to our church.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, wait, y'all are related? Like the Rush? Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. And then I was like, oh, it makes so much sense. No, I just remember seeing some hungry people come around, and which we all are, and we're all, anybody that comes in and is like, yeah, I want to be a part of this, that's part of their story. But I remember them coming around and going, like, we need family, and just like he's saying, like that's exactly what they were doing, was looking for that. So
Yeah.
Which is great. Your life group seems to have had a lot of people pregnant at the same time,
oh my gosh,
right? Who
Yeah.
hadn't been pregnant before.
sure,
And then a bunch of little boys were born.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like all little boys? Was there a girl besides Emily?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like every single girl I think who's been pregnant.
Right. yeah,
Dangerous.
just
Don't
about,
go to that life
just
group
about,
if you don't
yeah.
want to get pregnant.
That's right,
Great. And your life group just multiplied out anyway, so right?
right,
A couple
yeah,
months ago.
fairly recently, yeah.
Cool. It's great. I love that you're even here doing that for Stefan's interview.
Yeah.
It's so
Me too.
great how that changes. I remember when I hung out with Janelle, like one of the first times, my first thought about her was just like, she brings everything to the table. You know, like is who
Oh,
she is.
good word. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's a kind of like magnetizing person. Like she's so honest and open and vulnerable that it really like, I remember we went to the women's retreat, the first one we had.
Yeah.
And just the way she was sharing, it wasn't anything like inappropriate or weird. Like it was just like it was at such a level though that everyone else, it like
Started
took
to.
down everyone's walls, which
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
That's
that you
awesome.
guys cultivate that in your house, which is awesome. That
Yeah.
sort of honesty.
Yeah.
Speaking of honesty, I would love to go into your story a little bit. Like I
Yeah.
said, I mentioned before that I've heard, bits and pieces, and Janelle's told me a little bit, but I would like to hear it from you,
Yeah.
from how everything has been working out in your own life. And
Right.
I referenced this to you. We made a laugh about it, that I'm having you on because we're trying to maybe do some of these more series-specific podcasts. And the series we just started is Cultural Architects, and the first series, like the first message he gave, it was basically about like, does sin exist, and if it does, should we call it sin? And I just caught like one sentence that he said, and he said that like, I listened to the whole thing, but the one that like stuck out to me was like that we think sin is us basically saying no to all these really fun things, and that it's like
Yeah.
the Lord, being like, I just don't want you to have fun, but really it's like, no, like God hates what kills us. And I
Yeah.
think your story encapsulates a journey that something was trying to destroy your life.
Yeah.
And you've come out victorious.
It's a very nice way to put it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Good.
Well done.
It doesn't offend you? It doesn't make
No,
you...
no,
Okay,
no.
great. So I would just love for you to start from the very beginning.
Yeah.
When did your story start for you?
So when I think about like, what the place I got myself into, and I always thought, where did this even start?
Mm-hmm.
And everything was all good, elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And then in junior high, I noticed, my parents noticed too, it's when I started to just hang around people that I shouldn't be hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
Just very small things like that can start it. And just a desire to fit in with a certain group, things like that. So that's kind of where it all started. My mom noticed a shift going into 7th grade where the schools kind of combined.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was little things there, nothing much, just being stupid boys. And then later on at end of 8th grade, just little stuff, like I started chewing tobacco, it was more than just that. It was like I was starting to hide things from my parents and family.
And your parents were believers.
Super. I had an awesome home. Mm-hmm. I don't think it could have been much better.
Mm-hmm.
So it was uncommon, just coming from that good of a family. Like the rest of my friends were their families weren't close. They didn't hold them accountable too much, but I knew better.
Yeah.
So that kind of started that whole rebellion type thing. And then, later on it started, I started going to, just trying to fit in with that group again, going to parties. And even if I wasn't doing anything there, I still just wanted to be associated with that group.
Mm-hmm.
And then that led to a lot of other things. Do you want me to just start talking about that?
Sure. Like just, whatever you felt like was the sin that enticed you that ended up.
So the biggest part of my story was addiction to narcotics for about 10 years of my life. So,
and what was like the starting point for that? Because there was a moment, right? Like a time, an injury.
Yeah. So there was, times in high school when, I'd see painkillers, people passing them out at a party or something. I never took any. That was probably my junior year. Then senior year, I started to, I had a friend that had like an injury or something like that where he had some, and it felt a little more innocent because it was coming from like a friend. It wasn't this weird person at a party.
Yeah.
And I liked him a lot, but I didn't seek him out really after that. So I smoked weed for every day for years, and that it was just a bunch of shady things, and I was hiding it from my family and everybody else. So that started my senior year, off and on, taking painkillers, no addiction yet. And then 2002, I had a neck injury playing football at Taylor. That I was given some painkillers, and I liked them a lot. And so I would take them when I didn't need to, and just started doing that. Just got into the habit, and that became like a daily pleasure. And I would just I noticed myself planning out, like, when am I going to take the next ones? And if I was out, I was like, where am I going to get the next bottle? So it wasn't like a full-blown addiction that year. It was like kind of off and on. I would seek them out sometimes. I would take them when I can get them. And then I don't remember exact time frame because it was a while ago. But it was probably that summer. I had gotten pretty addicted to them because everyone has them in their house. Family, friends, every house you go to, you can usually just look, or it could. It wasn't as, people didn't know about it.
Yeah,
as
it wasn't
much.
like off limits as it
Like
like things now they've gotten a little more.
Yeah. So sophomore year was really bad before football camp even started. I just didn't know how I was going to get through everything I was trying to do with football and school. without him. So at that point, you're taking him just not to get sick.
Yeah.
And so I remembered this was like the main point when I was like something
is wrong.
Is really wrong.
Wow.
But I was at football practice with all my pads on, and I just could not stop thinking about him. I got like the craving in my stomach. Physically, I was already sweating from football, but you just start sweating differently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because mentally, you just start getting anxious and depressed, and you just feel dark.
Yeah.
And you only have one thing on your mind. So I was like, I can't take it anymore, and so I just pretended like I had some emergency and just ran from my team to the locker room, and just took off my pads, and then ran back to my dorm, and just got my drawer and took some, and then just sat there and just waited to not feel sick anymore.
Gosh.
So, and that was like the first time I was like, man, I'm so lonely.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be away from everybody, and just feed the addiction. And so, yeah, that was the first time I was like, that's awful. And then another time, during the season, it was a Friday night because we had a game Saturday morning, and I was in my dorm room, and I was out of pills, and I had not experienced I had experienced withdrawals like the sweats and the thoughts and all that, but this time I was throwing up all night just in the bathroom, and it was just bile.
Man.
And it wasn't the flu, and I just knew what it was.
Yeah.
And I knew how deep I was into that, and how hard that was going to be to get out.
Yeah, it must have been really terrifying to
Right.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, I either just keep this going, because I don't think I can do another day or 2 days without him, and I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
so the easiest thing was just to, I didn't ask the Lord for help. I didn't ask anyone for help. It was like my own thing. There's some people that knew, that I would get them from. But yeah, I just skipped the football game the next day, and I just stayed, in my room, and I just didn't want to. My parents came to the room. They saw I wasn't at the game. And so I just kind of lost care for everything from that year on. I only had that one goal. I didn't care about school. I just went downhill with everything, and I just became pretty shady with what I was, stealing them. I wasn't doing anything else wrong as like a person. It was like all just my main focus was just on where am I going to get more and how am I going to do it. So that was the beginning of all that.
Yeah. And at this point, your family didn't really know?
No, not many people knew, especially my family didn't know. The moment they really found out, I think they had some suspicion, obviously something was wrong,
right,
like weight changed and all that, because I used to, work out a lot and eat well, and then I became skinny and pale, and I quit football. And my parents could tell, but they were sitting at Ivanhoe's one time, which is the ice cream, and
I know that because
Oh, so
Carly
you
and
do
Chris
know
met
Upland.
there, right?
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
that's the only reason I know
Yeah.
the name, because he worked there and she
Yeah.
liked him. Anyway, keep going.
So my parents were eating there. I don't know this is my sophomore or junior year in college, and they were just trying to enjoy some food and some ice cream, and the kids behind their booth didn't know that was my parents, and they were talking about me and my roommate, saying they don't know how we're still even in school with all the pills we take.
Wow.
And so my mom, obviously that hurt her a lot.
Yeah.
And so she knew from then on, and so she would walk around my dorm like 7 times, like Jericho.
Yes.
Whoa.
So she just prayed every day. She just took walks around my dorm and would find me, you know, and just she was just trying to pray, and she would wake up praying. She'd go to bed praying, and
Gosh.
It's amazing.
she would take my jacket from home to like Moms in Touch, you know, and everyone lay hands on my jacket.
Gosh.
Whoa.
And would pray.
And then give it back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
You like wear
No, I mean, it was a jacket I didn't wear.
Yeah. No, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So my mom and my dad, but my mom was like, she was just desperate.
Yeah.
My dad was too. They just handled it in different ways, but my mom was super desperate to fix this somehow, and she just didn't. My family didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I mean,
So from
Should I
there, I
see-
know too. Yeah, keep going. So this is all happening, and I know that you ended up going somewhere,
Yeah.
right, for a while. And what was that transition like? So you're like in this low place, and
so I mean, a lot of things had happened at that point. I mean, just with school, I went for. I mean, I was in Mexico for school, and I just wanted so badly just to appreciate being there, but I ran out of pills there, and you know, we were on a bus, and this with our students, and we were, you know, everyone's bags were in there, and everyone was sightseeing, and I was like, I'm gonna stay back because I needed to find pills so badly, and I just pretended I was sick, and the whole time they were gone, I was just shaking bags trying to hear pills. And just missing out on something that should be so much fun. I was so sick and so desperate to find them.
yeah,
Like that's the only thing I would do. So I just spent years of living that lifestyle of missing out on so much good. That should have been such a fun time in life to being in such a prison of addiction
yeah,
and everything that came with it. So. I saw my friends graduating, and I didn't. I tried to come back for another semester right after that senior year, but I couldn't do anything. I was just too sick. So I moved back home, and there's so many things that happen. I'm just trying to keep it condensed. So I guess the main thing that happened. Where things turned around. There's a lot of stories, you know, of bad stories of like running with the cop one time where I should have definitely went to jail. I had a bunch of pills in my car, bottles without my name on it that I had taken. I had just come from a bar. I just smoked weed in the car, and I got pulled over. This was the first time I was like, somebody's protecting me from something.
Your mom's prayers are.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Something's happening.
Yeah, so I had just taken a thing of liquid morphine, and I had Xanax that I had taken. I had been drinking, and I had just smoked weed in the car. And so I was trying to drive to wherever I was going, and I was in Indy that summer, and I was getting pulled over. And you know, in my head, I was like, there's just no way I'm not going to jail. It's impossible. And so I rolled down my window, like without even saying much. I mean, the cop just makes me get out and do the sobriety test. Like I fall over on my shoulder, like he should have just taken me right there. And then I see other cops coming there, and so I thought this is going to be the time where the life-changing moment, where I have to go to jail for a little while, and then things will get better. It's something I thought something like that had to happen.
Right.
And I don't even remember what I talked to the cops about, but it was for like 10 minutes or so, and I remember talking about college, but he walked me back to the car and let me go. And
Wow.
And so maybe not in the exact moment, but like the next day, I was like, the Lord's protecting me here.
Yeah.
And started to question things, and that same summer, I'm pretty sure it was that same summer, I was out of pills again, and I'd been through so many doctors that wouldn't see me anymore because I was just looking for pills. And so I drove from Indy to Muncie, found a doctor there, and I got some stuff for anxiety, like they wouldn't give me pain pills, but I got something that would help me with the withdrawals. So I was just so worn out and so tired of running from everything. And as I was driving home, I put on worship music.
Wow.
And I just felt so convicted. So I was just sobbing, and I was just yelling, like screaming to the Lord how sorry I was.
Wow. When you say like convicted, was it like a shame conviction, or was it like a wow, like the Lord loves me, I'm convicted?
Yeah, there was no condemnation or anything. It was all just
wow.
It was just like a feeling like I'm here. This is why I came to this world, was for your brokenness.
Wow.
Whatever I felt, I was really excited about. I didn't feel bad at all. I just felt excited that I felt the Lord's presence for the first time.
Yeah, God showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say up to that point, had you, like, if you look back in your history, were there moments where the Lord had initiated with you before, or was this kind of like the very first time you felt?
I mean, I prayed against, I basically asked the Lord to leave me alone, because I remember praying this prayer at my parents' house, getting ready to go to a doctor's appointment the next morning, and I didn't want him to interfere with getting more pills, so I literally was asking him just to leave me alone, and I don't want anything to do with it if that's going to keep me from getting this. So that was the first time, and it was kind of confirmed to my mom, because she always, every single morning, she would say, "Lord, is this a day of salvation for my son?"
What a mom.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You need to interview her next.
So for years, she asked, she would ask the Lord that if it's the day of salvation. So when I went home, I went to my parents, I was sobbing, saying I felt the Lord's presence for the first time. And I was honest with them about everything, called my grandparents.
Wow.
And so my mom, she got in my car, and I'd been listening to the worship music on the way home, and she went to go get gas in my car and get me food. And when she got in the car, there was no music, no nothing. But she said it was like a loud voice over the radio, and it said, "This is the day of salvation."
Goodness.
What?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And so that was a confirmation to her.
Yeah, I would
this
say
was
so.
fun.
I think that's the Lord.
Yeah, that this was the real deal.
Wow.
And it was really just me letting my guard down and just letting the Lord come into my life that the major changes started happening.
Wow.
It wasn't like I was going out there and just researching how to do this. It was
Right.
It was just literally saying, "Okay, Lord, I'm ready to be fixed, and whatever that means, I want it to happen."
Yeah.
And then so a lot of really good things started happening, even though I was still fighting the addiction.
Right, like it's still a journey, but the Lord had
and it took a long
initiated
time.
Yeah.
But so for where I went was it was a methadone clinic, and I tried one other thing for like a day, didn't work, so this methadone clinic, it's like a synthetic morphine. It's very hard to get off of. You can take yourself up on the dosage really high, which basically it's just you get it legally. So I mean it's more addicting than anything out there.
Wow.
And I took myself up to the highest dose, which made it even seem more impossible to get off of. So when we went in there, my mom, I was number 289, and now it's thousands, but my mom was like, is there anyone that's been able to get clean of this stuff? And the nurse said, well, we've had one person, and that's out of 289 people.
What?
So my mom was really down about that. I didn't care because I just wanted whatever to make me feel better. I wanted that. So that was a 5-year journey.
Wow.
And so I went to 120 milligrams, and that was probably, I don't know, within 2 years. So I probably had 3 years of of decreasing it 1 dose at a time, like once a week. And I just thought how impossible that was, because when I went from 120 to 119, I started sobbing on the way home, and I was just, telling the Lord how scared I was, losing just that 1 milligram, which is nothing, but that was just all my security.
Right.
Goodness.
Was in that, it's such an addicting thing that, so I remember the Lord always put a picture in my head of me being out, in the water, like in the ocean with 120, like, what do you call those things the floaty things?
Yeah.
So he would always give me that picture.
He's like undoing one at a time.
Yeah, and it'd be like one would go, and he'd be like, all right. He's like, I got you. He's like, we can do this.
Gosh.
And then, I would feel sick in the middle of the night, and so I had a wooden cross. It's called Cling to the Cross. And I would just ask the Lord for help.
Gosh.
And just and I would just hold this cross and just, I would hang on to that for security or anything that I needed that I was lacking. I would just hold on to that, and I would feel a lot better. And anyway, so that a lot went by or nights went by of taking off a buoy at a time.
Yeah.
And then finally, like, I remember the last day, I was just in the shower listening to some worship music, and it was such a scary feeling floating out there by myself and with the Lord, but he just made me feel so comforted. But I was like, we're finally doing this without anything else.
Yeah.
And so that was just the greatest feeling in the world, to be free of all that.
That's wild.
So I went to Bethel like right after that, so I could just get rid of withdrawals there.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah, sure. And I just so in the middle of that methadone clinic, the 5 years, one of my buddies that had went to school there had moved back home, and gave me some sermons from there, and I completely stopped listening to music. Like, I just didn't want anything else. Like, I just wanted everything that they were preaching. I was like, this is what I need. And so I would just listen to sermons all day, every day, any second that I could. Right when I woke up, when I was going to bed, working out, when at work. So I was just so hungry for a true sense of identity. Because I just didn't have it. So that was a few years of just listening to sermons only, and then being clean of that.
And then you went to Bethel.
Yeah, then I went to Bethel, and then got to meet Bill and Chris, and then Jason Valentin, Chris's son, whose sermon I listened to a lot. It's called Working Through Pain.
And you just went on a trip with all of them, right?
Yeah, with Brad. Yeah, so I was able to talk to Jason, so I talked to him when I was there about what I gotten done with.
Yeah.
And then I was able to tell him, the last time I was with you, I was just so scared. I was just off of, that whole lifestyle from the biggest part of my life I was on. I was addicted to something. And I was like, now I'm married to a girl that I never thought I was good enough to get married to.
And she loves you so much.
Yeah. And I have, I've got a son and another guy in the way. And like a church I'm involved with, and I have no friends that really aren't really good for me. I've surrounded myself with such good people, and not even on purpose. It just kind of happened.
It's kind of like the Lord.
Yeah. And with Bill, I think you told him that I do hair or something, and so he texted me
father-in-law, yes. Yeah. Not Bill Johnson.
Bill Freegee.
I wish I could tell that. So I'll totally tell him that.
He needs some haircuts.
Okay. Yes, I told my father-in-law.
So I did Bill Freegee's hair, and then he went home and said the Lord told him that he needs to meet with me once a week for lunch. So
that's discipleship.
Lunches.
You're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
God told me.
Bill Freegee.
Yeah, I was like, whatever you say, I'll do.
Sure. Yes, sir.
So we shared, I think our love for animals was very apparent.
Oh my gosh, he's the worst.
I'm kidding.
That's not podcast safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Bill, I mean, he was just so awesome, and I get to do his hair still every couple weeks, and
He's an amazing
but I'm just
man.
so thankful for people like that, you know, in our in our life group. I mean, I put no effort really into any of it, and then the Lord just gave me all these things, and it just blows my mind. I mean, I'm just so thankful for it.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's such a key thing what you're sharing, that the stark contrast of like what sin and the enemy tries to isolate, and then now as soon as God gets a hold of you, like, I didn't do anything, and there's all this community, there's all these people. It's how we're created to live.
Yeah.
And like that it did require, like obviously you had to will for freedom.
Right.
You have to like, desire it.
Yeah.
But like the day of salvation was not something that Stefan was like, okay, today. You know,
Yeah.
like the Lord invades. And like you know, in my head I'm like, Lord, why not the first day? Like why wait?
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, just not to argue with the timing of God.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think I just really didn't let him into my life before that.
Yeah.
I think it's right when I truly cried out to him is when, I mean, I knew he was there all along, but I don't know if that's, I don't know, whatever it is, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. It's so amazing. I think like just hearing the whole story about the journey and the process is encouraging to me, because I feel like there are a lot of people who, in different situations, and myself included, where you feel like hopeless on certain areas, and then that picture of you in the ocean in the boot, I'm like, oh, I so relate to that. Like if you could eliminate, and I feel like that's really what my journey with the Lord is like eliminating one crutch after the other until like you're really just standing on Jesus.
And I even so I went to, or I started to, I never liked beer before that, but then after I noticed myself, I started to drink beer, and so that got to the point where I was just drinking too much, and that became a crutch, and I was like, well, my body's not addicted to it, it's legal, this is fine, and so for me, it wasn't, and I'll just give you a real quick story.
Yeah, please.
But it was a big one because it was the first time I really heard the Lord's voice. It was when I was living at Carly's house and Chris's house, and I lived in their basement. I read a book called Good Morning Holy Spirit. A buddy of mine gave it to me, so I was really good about reading it. I woke up every morning and I was reading it, and I was just asking the Lord. I was like, I just want to hear your voice so badly. I want to know what it's like. I know it's possible.
Yeah.
And so, when I was at work downtown, you know Jimmy Ryan?
Yeah.
I had never met Jimmy. Actually, we were going to a Haste the Day concert before when I was in college, because there was a guy at Taylor that played, but we missed it. So I never saw him. So I've never seen Jimmy. Didn't know anything about him, what he looked like.
Yeah.
Did Chad tell you this?
No. You told me I love Jimmy.
Yeah. So I was leaving downtown, leaving my salon, and I was in the hallway, and you could only see, like, there was a glass door out to Indiana Avenue, and there's this little, I could only see a door, and I see this guy zip by on his bike, and I heard the Lord say, that's Jimmy, and I was like, wow. I was like, I knew, so one of my buddies, Brennan, I knew he was friends with them, and then Kelly, from my town.
Yeah.
We were going to a concert one time, and he told me about Jimmy.
Yeah.
So I knew who Jimmy was, just never had seen him, and so I was like, that's super weird that he would tell me that.
Yeah,
if that's the Lord's voice, I need to go.
You just never know what the Lord's gonna say.
I was like, I need to go get him.
Yeah.
And
as he's whizzing away on his bike.
Yeah, so I ran up to my car and chased him down.
You heard God.
And so it was hard timing to actually get up to him, because he was always right at the stoplight on the sidewalk there. And so I pull up and I rolled down my window. I was like, hey, are you Jimmy? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I don't know why, but the Lord told me your name, and I'm just trying to hear his voice. And it was just kind of quick, and it was weird. So he left. No interaction for, I don't know, a year and a half or so. We followed each other on social media, and he posted a story that said, at this point, he said, 2 months ago, I broke up with alcohol, and I was reading it, and I was 100%. That's the whole reason I met Jimmy, was to the Lord to tell me I need to quit drinking beer.
Wow.
And so a couple years went by, and I had always felt convicted of that. Like when I was worshiping, I was like, no, that's not. I don't have to do that. And then I felt so convicted by it, so I was like, Lord, if this is truly what you want from me, if you want me to be free of everything, I get it, but I don't want to do that. So I need you to speak to me on that.
Yeah.
And so it's probably within the week, I was asleep and I had a dream that I was driving down a country road, and those like toll booth things that are up and down. I could just see what was in the headlights, and this big red toll thing comes down in front of my car. And I was like reading what it said, and it said in big white letters, "Indiana needs you to stop drinking."
No way.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
And I think I told you that.
Yeah.
And
I hope you didn't wake up and be like, I don't know, that wasn't very
I was
clear.
joking with them. I was like, all right, we're getting close.
He shared
Now
that
we
with
just
the
need to
group.
say Stefan.
He shared that with the group, the life
Wow.
group, and then he was like, yes, I think maybe I'll think about it. And everyone's like, what?
Wow.
So that was great. So that was like
Yeah.
about 7 months ago or so.
That
Yeah.
is so
But
awesome.
I just didn't think it'd be possible for me to be free of everything, even if it wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to him like at the conference. It was like people were needing freed of things, and it was the first time I've ever been to anything like that, feeling like I don't need freed from anything. There's
Yeah.
nothing. I'm not in any bondage anymore of anything.
That's crazy.
So awesome.
So anyway,
I love that. And I
Yeah.
love that it's like it was a permissible thing. Like Paul
Yeah,
says, like
sure.
all things are permissible, not all things are beneficial. And to think that,
Yeah.
that the Holy Spirit cares about us individually to speak,
Yeah.
like, hey, this is your limit.
Right.
It might not be your neighbor's limit or your
Sure.
best friend's
Yeah.
limit or even your like wife or husband's, but
Yeah.
it's yours. And to like respect that he does that. I was talking
Yeah.
to Eden recently because she was talking about how she, anyway, in a similar way, it was like giving in to friends and peer pressure. And I was like, how do you feel when you do that stuff? And she's like, well, I feel like sad, like I'm making God sad. And I was Eden, the thing is like hearing the voice of God is a privilege, and when we obey, we hear more. But if you just continue to ignore, like you lose hearing the voice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to think that you're cultivating your obedience as like a pathway for Him to speak
yeah,
even more, which is so cool. And with your two kids, like just what the Lord's
Yeah.
gonna do in your
Yeah.
family and with your sons and
yeah,
and this podcast, I feel like it's super powerful. Just hearing.
Yeah, that's great.
What God can do.
Mm-hmm. I had a question, unless
Yes,
you wanted
yeah,
to
no,
go
please,
somewhere
go
before we ended. I just even you kind of talking about that, like I just want to hear like what you're excited about, like what's next,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you think, what's coming up, like. I don't know. I know there's stuff in you. They're like, yeah, I'm excited to see what God does in this relationship, whatever it is,
yeah. Man, I don't know.
There's probably a lot.
I'm just so thankful that
Yeah.
like this is life now.
Yeah.
Like I was telling her, I just never saw it possible to be
Yeah.
free of everything.
Yeah.
So man, I don't know. I'm just I don't know.
Yeah.
That's great. That sounds like you need to ask the Lord for your next
Right,
Yeah.
sure.
Because then he'll have an arrow that says like the next.
Yeah,
that's
I
great.
think what I'm
That's
most
great.
excited about is all the clients I come into contact with.
Oh, wow.
I'm so excited that because there's so many lost ones.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was at that conference, Jason did some prophecy stuff over me and was telling people that would be drawn to me, and it was like
Yeah.
Wow.
certain
I
clients
was
that
almost going to say people are drawn to you, and Janelle should have said it. Damn it.
It's the truth.
It is true.
and he was saying how people won't really know what it is that they're drawn, but it's the Lord living in you that they're drawn
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean that's just a bunch of clients that
Yeah.
I'm close with, and they
Right
all
on.
know about me,
Yeah.
and I know they're going to be desperate at some point,
Yeah.
desperate enough to reach out to me, and so I think I'm just so excited to see
Yeah.
them come to the Lord at some point.
Yeah.
'Cause I know there's so many of them. There's like a few of them that I know are so close.
Yeah.
And one of them asked, I mean, he doesn't believe in the Lord at all, and he asked me how the conference was. And so I just know, there's a lot of people
Yeah.
that I can that were living, maybe not in dramatic sin like I was, but they're lost. And
right. And I think that's the takeaway today is like sin is sin is sin.
Yeah.
And,
it is.
Whether it's like addiction to pills or addiction to pornography or addiction to self-worship.
Yeah.
It's like it all stinks. It all wants to kill you.
Yeah.
And like freedom really is possible. We can eliminate the buoys one at a time, which is so cool.
Yeah.
So great. Will you pray for everybody listening? Just bless them and pray for anybody who might be listening and is like, oh, I think this is my red flag of addiction. Like, will you just ask for freedom for those people?
Yeah. Father, we come to you as your sons and daughters, and we want you create us in a certain way, and we just want to live in that way that you've created us. So I ask, Father, for anyone that needs it, Lord, place them on our heart. Give them a hunger for you, and anyone that's been through addiction stuff, I pray that you just let them know and truly believe that that's just not the way it is, and that your brain can truly change, and you can do whatever you want to do. And living in freedom is such a joy, and it's really not just saying no to things that other people find fun, but just living in freedom and living with your presence and experiencing your Holy Spirit is a greater high than anything, anything I've ever experienced. And there's such a wholeness to your love and to what you have for us that you just can't experience without you. So we just pray for all those people that are lonely and that are just without you, that they come to find you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.